Hey everyone and welcome to the video. So I spent a little time looking around the brand new district that Saints Row managed to add to the map, and I have to say, I've got mostly good thoughts about it. There's a couple things that kind of bother me about it, and that's what I'll get into in this video, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. So let's go through it all. I'll tell you about mostly the good stuff, and a couple things I do think were a slight letdown. So first off, it comes with a decent amount of stuff. You got a sort of haunted house style area, which is pretty neat. You got sort of like two mini districts in the district, one that's slightly more commercial buildingy stuff, and then you've also got a sort of more rundown area that's definitely made for the LARPing side. Both are actually decently cool to look at, and if you can get past the fact that it is LARPing, you can almost sort of picture it as this sort of medieval side of the map, which I was kind of hoping we'd go for. So I have to say, when it comes to themes, I don't think they did too bad, really. You also see a lot of new enemies around the map. I say new, they're newish. They're not brand new. They were kind of seen in cutscenes and a couple missions in the LARPing, but they're now in the free roam, and I do have to say it's quite a nice change of pace to walk around and see sort of new enemies around and stuff. Yeah, big fan of that personally. There's lots of new vehicles too. I don't know if they're necessarily 100% new or they just spawn with certain modifications, but you've definitely got some sort of LARP-centered vehicles, and then I also found this sort of really old-fashioned sort of car, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, when it comes to the new stuff, I mean, the update's not really too lacking. I have to say, it's, for the most part, it's pretty nice. Another thing I do want to give them credit on here, because I do think they've done a decent job at improving it, is there are actually a decent amount of interiors. I mean, I don't know, it's definitely got the most interiors per district out of anywhere on the map. You know, not only do you have the sort of store interiors, but you got a haunted mansion you can kind of enter, a couple sort of tent houses and stuff, and again, I mean, they're not proper interiors at the end of the day, they are just sort of like tent houses and shanty houses, but I do think it's better than nothing, and I can see a decent bit of time and effort has been put into adding a few more interiors around the district. By far the most varied district in the map, I'd say, lots of areas to visit, and I do again want to credit them for having some interiors. The customization options are a little bit eh. I mean, we get a cool couple outfits and headgear and stuff, but realistically, I think all the cool stuff, I hope, will be saved for the DLC, a bit like the Heist and Hazardous, you know. There's a bar, basically, on the map, right, and inside it's just got a bunch of photos of Volition's dogs, and I thought that was so cool to see everyone's dogs kind of ported into the game. I thought that was really sick, and yeah, I definitely was a big fan of that, them adding sort of like their real life into the game. So yeah, big fan of that. I think this game's pretty nice visually, and I definitely like how this game does look. So yeah, this district looks just as pretty as the others, if not maybe a little so more because of some of the weird sort of architecture and stuff. Yeah, it's definitely on the weirder side, but I don't actually hate it. It's kind of got your generic stuff, you know, your actual locations, your threats, your did you know history thing. You know, not the most interesting stuff in the world by any sort of stretch of the imagination, but you know, I'm glad it's there. It gives me something to do to explore the new district. And then the last thing I do kind of want to compliment them on here is basically they've managed to fix the challenges. At least for me, I got a bunch of notifications like, you've completed this challenge, you've completed this challenge, which is nice. A lot of people were really struggling with the challenges not tracking, and I do think that that's pretty good that they've managed to come around and fix that stuff. You know, it's an issue people have had plaguing the game for a really long time, and the fact it's finally fixed is really nice. So that's most of the praise I have. I mean, I'm sure there'll be more in my actual DLC review, which I will touch upon the map and district and stuff. But overall, I do think it's a pretty solid district, and I think it adds a lot of variety. And I'd say it's definitely one of the more varied districts in the entire map. So, with all that good stuff out of the way, what's the bad stuff, I hear you ask? Well, there's a couple things, and they're not really major, but, you know, they're things that kind of bug me. So, first off, there's a lot of reused assets here from the base map, and I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, but there's just a lot to the point I noticed, you know. We got the Mad Cow Bar coming back again, we got plenty of Apollo's coffee shops around the map again, and I like that they have brands and stuff that they're trying to put around the map, but like it kind of gets to the point now where it's like they were in all of the DLC districts. I just noticed them and I was like, damn, I've already seen this. I've already seen this. And it's not inherently bad, don't get me wrong. But it was just something I certainly noticed. But as a bit of like a sort of flip side of that, there's plenty of new buildings too. So don't think it's flooded with just reused assets. I'm just saying there are some and I did notice them. And I guess one other thing I'm not too big a fan of, but it makes sense for the location, is there's quite a lot of dead space. There's lots of like empty areas and like I know it's set in the desert side of the map, so it's bound to have that. But you know, when you compare it to maybe Sunshine Springs, where it feels like, you know, that entire district is taken up by stuff happening. This one, I mean, don't get me wrong, again, don't think it's just filler. There's plenty of stuff happening, But I do also think that perhaps there are some areas that go a little bit underutilized, where there's just kind of like these random bits of debris and scrap and not actually any cool stuff happening. There's this one section that's basically like a scrapyard full of signs. And, I don't hate that by any mean, but I mean, there's just nothing to do there. I mean, yeah, there was a threat there, but like, past that, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. There are a couple cool Easter eggs and references to Stillwater and stuff, and I already love that stuff, and I'm sure that's stuff you guys are going to want to find for yourself, so I won't ruin too much. But yeah, overall, I don't think it was too bad. I don't think it's too bad of an update, and you definitely can do a lot worse. And then the final bad thing I want to say is I came across this sort of haunted house I could enter, had a beautiful interior. It asked me to do something, and then I had no idea what I was doing. I was paying attention. I had to sort of like catch these ghost soul things, but no waypoints popped up, no anything really. All I can think is that this is supposed to be for the DLC. But if it is supposed to be for the DLC, I don't know why I had access to it when I did. Yeah, not a huge fan of that. But aside from those small things, I'd say that this update, as much as people kind of don't want me to say it, is relatively decent. It fixes some of the more major issues that were still plaguing the game. And it's just kind of like a nice, pretty district. I can't knock it too much, and yeah, I think it's pretty nice. I've still got plenty more I do want to say on it, but I'm going to save that, like I say, for maybe a full style review, because, that will eventually be coming, and you guys are going to want my thoughts on it then. But until I get a sort of maybe full style review for the actual DLC pack out, that's all I have to say. Overall, this district and update's not half bad, and I do think it's worth giving a bit of your time to if you have the game and, maybe just want something to do for a while. I don't think it's going to keep you entertained for crazy amounts of time or anything, but it's definitely nice to just explore the new district. And this is definitely one of the more different ones. It has a much more rundown feel to it. And yeah, I have to say, I mean, overall, it's pretty nice. I don't hate it. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. I know that this is kind of more positive than you guys are probably expecting, myself included. I just actually quite enjoy the district. I do think the district will be the strongest part, and all I hope is that they do improve the customization and they somehow manage to make the LARPing missions fun. I don't really know how they're going to execute it, and obviously I hope they execute it well. But that's pretty much all I have. Anyway, take care everyone. See you in the next video.